They win Game 3 in Buffalo, and the Mammoth are 2022 NLL champions.
Joining me on Lacrosse Link, four-time NLL champion, John Lintz. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So we're recording on Monday. You've had a couple of days to come down. Have you come down off the high that championship was? Because it was so exciting for all of us watching it. It must have been amazing for you guys.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind couple of days, obviously, with the celebration on Saturday, and then didn't sleep much that night, and then traveling back from the east on Sunday, and then I was able to kind of hang out and celebrate it with my family a little bit yesterday, and finally get some sleep. So I still don't know that it's entirely hit me. I don't know that it hit me when it happened, and I think it's going to take some time to soak in. So there's a moment at the end of that game where Kyle Buchanan scored in the first quarter there. And I was, right after the goal, I was yelling at Tim Edwards. I was going like, we need to win the clamp. Like, we need to get the next draw. And I'm yelling at him. And he looked at me and with this like calm and just went, we're going to win. And I looked over his shoulder and I saw the clock and there was 6 seconds left. And I was like, oh my God, like, we're going to win. And I couldn't. So yeah, it's been a pretty wild couple of days, but I'm very excited.
Yeah, it was such an exciting series, such an exciting game, and it really was tight until Zed Williams scored maybe one of the prettiest empty net goals that you're gonna see.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't go with the whatever you call that, like the crease dive reverse backhand. I don't know what you scoop call it, but no, he was lived up to his nickname and lived up to the billing all series long and all playoff long. So we kind of followed his lead that night.
And throughout the series, really. I mean, that was the thing I think about this team. And I mean, I've talked to a handful of players and everyone espouses the, next man up, which is easy enough to say. But when you have Ryan Lee go out and then Eli McLaughlin go out, and you've got guys like Sam Firth stepping into the lineup who'd never played in the league, Brett McIntyre, who'd played 2 regular season games, didn't score, and then scores. I'm trying to think what he got. He got 11 points in the first 2 games of the finals. I mean, you have guys stepping up hugely, and of course Zed taking on a much bigger role with Ryan Lee out throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think like for Zed himself, I think a lot of us kind of believe, and obviously the organization believed when we brought him over, that he was capable of that sort of a performance. That's why you make that move, is the hope that, coming out from under the shadow of like a Lyle Thompson will allow him to have performances like that. So I think we thought that was there in the back of our minds, but to see him go do it consistently, just an unbelievable player, but a better person. And so we're all very happy he was able to have those performances, and obviously it contributed for us. But I mean, for our team, about halfway through the year, I remember we had a couple losses, and Coach Cole was talking to our dressing room and going like, do we have an identity here? Do we know who we are as a team? And we had a couple like big comeback wins, or midway through the year. And I think from then on, we kind of figured out that we were this team where, we're going to outlast teams, and we're going to be there, in the third and fourth quarter. I watch a lot of UFC, and I watch one of my favorite guys to watch is Nate Diaz. And Nate Diaz is a guy that sometimes goes into fights and doesn't have a single advantage over the guy he's fighting, but he knows he's going to outlast him, right? He's going to be there in the 5th round or the 3rd round or whatever it is, and he's going to be the one still punching. And I felt like when you go up against a colossus like Buffalo in the finals, having that in our back pocket, that mentality of like, we're always going to be there, we're never going to quit, we're never going away, was massive. And then you get some good performances from guys filling in like Sam Firth and like BMAC and these guys, and it's just kind of icing on the cake. So
obviously the offense was a real focal point because of the missing players in Lee and McLaughlin, and everyone knows Dillon Ward and how I trust people knew how good he was even before this series. But the defense has been kind of a strong point for Colorado over the last handful of years. And in this case, it felt like it really, and it's always felt like it's just such a team approach. There are great individual performances. I thought Warren Jeffrey may have been the best defender in the playoffs. Robert Hope is always so good. I think you're probably playing as well as you ever have as a veteran player. But other guys, Jordan Gillis, there's so many guys playing big roles. It sometimes is hard to figure like, hey, who's doing this? Who's making it so they're playing so well? But I think the answer is everybody.
Yeah, and I think that starts right at the top, like in Pat Coyle and Andrew McBride. I think you have the two of the better defensive minds probably in the league. And so, having that knowledge that we have a game plan going into every game, and that comes from two guys like that, I think is big for us. Specifically against Buffalo, I think a lot of teams struggled with them because they wouldn't really approach Buffalo the way we did. And part of that approach was we played one against their right-handed players, against the Davis and the Tohoku-Nanticokes and of the world, Chase Frazers, and you spoke about Warren Jeffrey and Robert Hope and even a guy like Anthony Joakim, who we picked up in a deadline deal. They were able to play one-on-one against those guys repeatedly, and that allows the rest of your defense to kind of not be scrambling, not always have slides moving everywhere. But I mean, the biggest thing, and it's no secret for us, is like we have a goalie that outplays most other goalies, and as a defender every night, when you don't have to sell out, because if an outside shot is taken, he's probably going to swallow it up. It's an easy way to play defense.
You've now won 4 NLL titles. The first one way back in 2009 as a 22-year-old with Calgary, right? And then 15 in Edmonton, 16 in Saskatchewan with the Rush. How does this one compare? How is it different now that you're one of the veteran guys and with a different team? And it's been a while with the pandemic, but even before that, it's been since 16 since you won.
Yeah, it's just wild. I mean, for multiple reasons. I walked through that hallway in Buffalo, and there's a mural. It's like a still photo of a Buffalo game against the Vancouver Stealth, and that was taken 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm on the bench as a coach that year. I had retired from lacrosse. I had a bad injury. I'd started kind of trying to coach with Vancouver, and so to fast forward 5 or 6 years, and be in the position I am, where I'm still playing good lacrosse for me, and to be on a team like this, it's pretty unbelievable, turnaround to come here. And I think it's different for other reasons too. Like, I think those two teams that I was with, the kind of the Sask dynasty and then that Calgary team, you could put those rosters up against, all-time teams. I think those are two gargantuan teams. I don't feel like we were like that this year. I think, obviously we have a lot of amazing lacrosse players and pieces, but I don't think a lot of people picked us to win. And I think at the age I'm at, giving a little perspective, like understanding how hard it is and understanding what I've been through, it allowed me to enjoy kind of every moment of it. And I did, man. I've loved this entire playoffs and being around our team. It's been a season I'll never forget. That's for sure.
I'd actually forgotten about your earlier retirement and going into coaching and then making the comeback. And, it does add another perspective to it. And you turned 36 a couple days after this episode will drop. And again, as I mentioned, and talking to some people in the organization, it seems like everyone feels like you're playing really as well as ever. Like you were such an important part of that defense. Do you keep going? Like how long do you picture yourself continuing to play?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to, say I'd do the thing where you go out on top and sail off into the sunset, but It's gonna be a decision. I'm gonna have to sit down with my wife, and obviously we have a 1-year-old now, and starting a family together kind of idea. But for me, like I just love lacrosse. I love being at the arena. I love being around the boys, and so I think probably the more likely answer is you'll see me until someone stops writing my paychecks. But
And the one other thing I just wanted to ask about, I know you mentioned, the coaching in the NLL. I know you are highly committed to coaching back in Alberta. How's that going? What's the coaching side of things like for you now?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, the one piece that's been difficult through this whole playoff run, is the effect it's had on my other parts of my life. Like obviously, teaching went longer and than I ever have before, so it's kind of affected that. But the part that I have struggled with, I think the most, is feeling guilty because I've missed a lot of coaching junior A. And coaching as much as anything is my passion. I've always coached, like since I was basically in high school. I've coached teams in different sports and that. So we have the junior A minors. I think we're really good this year. There's a couple of the Calgary teams that are really strong as well in our league, and so that now that we're kind of winding down with the Mammoth, it'll give me more time and focus on that, and dedicate myself to that really talented roster. I think the thing that I kept thinking about through this playoffs in watching some of the performances of like the Dillon and the Brett McIntyres and all the guys that we have from Alberta on our team is how special it would be to get some more Edmonton area talent in the NLL. And so, as much as our team success, I'm really focused on trying to get guys to that level and to have that success in NCAA and NLL and beyond. So I'm excited for the summer too. It's a lot going on, but I'm excited.
Yeah. Alberta is taking off. It's pretty exciting to see, and I know you're a big part of that. Congratulations on this win, and thanks for taking the time to come on the show. It's great to have you on, and look forward to hopefully seeing you play again next year, depending on what you decide with your family.
Really appreciate it always, Stamper. We'll talk to you soon.
Hi, this is Jaden with Al Anderson Source for Sports. Excited to tell you that we got all our new lacrosse product in for this upcoming season. Whether you're playing box or field, our lacrosse experts are going to make sure we get you into the right equipment to elevate your game. At Al Anderson Source for Sports, we know our stuff.
Joining me on Lacrosse Link, championship MVP from the recent NLL finals, Dillon Ward. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I think you are our first returning guest, but last time we were talking about sixes, so pretty different experience here. And I'm just wondering, has it sunk in? Have you had a chance to kind of just, take in that you guys just won this championship?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind of 3 days, but I think yesterday was my first time really sitting there like thinking we did this, and we were able to take the cup out to we took it with us to lunch and a couple other spots and the Avs watch party last night, and the amount of people that were stopping us, taking pictures, congratulating us was awesome. And it reminded you how important the Colorado Mammoth are to the Denver area, and it really makes you feel proud of what we just accomplished.
With the Avalanche in the midst of a Stanley Cup championship series, has that kind of helped to get some more attention because they're still playing as well? Like you said, you took the watch party, or does it feel like you guys are dividing the attention a bit?
I don't think it's dividing the attention. I don't know if you saw, but there was a couple of clips of the Avs after we won the championship, them showing our celebration on the Jumbotron, and that place was going nuts. And actually yesterday, like a number of people who stopped us said that they were at that game and said the place was like even more electric than you would have thought, and what seemed like on the video. So that was really cool to hear, and to get the credit from the kudos from those guys was awesome. And it's just a cool time to be part of Denver sports, and seeing us and the Avs chasing down championships at the same time was awesome.
Speaking of championships, you've won the Minto Cup, Man Cup, World Championships in field lacrosse and box lacrosse. It didn't look from the post-game celebrations like you ever get tired of winning championships, but I'm wondering, as you go through your career, get a little further into it, and have had different experiences, does the feeling change at all and how you enjoy it?
Yes and no. I mean, I certainly just still love winning championships as much as I did when I was younger. But I found over the years in these last few championships that I've won that it's been, much more exciting for everyone else, and to celebrate that with guys who haven't won championships at this level. Like Joey Capito told me that was his first ever lacrosse championship. So, to be able to just celebrate with your teammates and look at all the hard work that we put in and sacrifices that people made and hurdles we had to go over. It's awesome to take a step back and look at that from a different perspective rather than, oh, here's our trophy, we won this, which is great. But I feel like my last few championships, I've really been able to take a step back and look at it from a different angle.
It's interesting to see the guys who haven't had that opportunity. When you're talking about that, it makes me think of racing in the Canadian Rowing Championship in the pair. And I was rowing with a guy from UBC, and we've gotten together that summer. And we go and we're trailing. We're in third or fourth most of the way. We start passing people. We're still behind 500 meters to go. We pass them and we win. And I was stroking. So I turn around and I say, hey, good race. He goes, that was great. I've never won a race before. I was like, oh, I'm so glad you didn't tell me that before
Right.
this race. But
Right.
I'm curious, like you've got guys like, you mentioned Joey Capito, Robert Hope. You've got some veterans who have been waiting to taste this, but some of the rookies must have been just as excited, I would think. Did they appreciate it as much as they should, do you think? Or is that something that you need the experience?
Oh no, 100% they did. They, especially with the rookies being put into the situations that they were for us, they realized how hard this is, and they realized the mountain that we had to climb to get there. And talking with the guys, we have Jalen Chaster and Brett McIntyre living in Colorado, and we've been together with all the local guys the last few days, and you just know, talking to them, that they did not take that for granted. They don't think that what we did was easy and is normal. But the way that they stepped in and did what they needed to do for us and for us to be successful, they were awesome.
Probably one of the most critical elements of your success this year was how well you as a team played, you particularly and the team, in second halves. And do you have any way of explaining the mastery that you guys showed?
I really don't know. Obviously we made some awesome adjustments at halftime, and a lot of that credit has to go to Pat Coyle and Brider. But we just seemed to find a way. And, there was no deficit too large for us. We never counted ourselves out of games. We always thought that, there was a way that we could find a way to win. And, I think that resiliency was hard to play against. I think there's moments in these playoffs and regular season where teams may have thought that they had us, but we just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And it didn't get to points where, you see some teams where they're down, like one guy will try to take the team on their back and do their own thing. Like we just stuck to our game plan, no matter the situation, and came in waves and found ways to win and score goals and get stops. So we're just a resilient group. We supported each other. We believed in each other. And again, we just found ways.
John Lintz was on the show, and he was talking about how important it was facing that Buffalo offense. It's so potent, so powerful, so many weapons, to be able to have the lefty defenders just play one-on-one with the Dane Smiths and Chase Frasers of the world. And I'm wondering how that affects you in the way that you're able to play or need to play in net.
Yeah. I mean, our defense was great. And especially like our left side is just, it's big. Like we just have big lefties. And, with Lintzer and Hopi and Warren, those guys are just monsters on their own. Joker's a thick guy, and Jalen is like, that water bug who can kind of, cover those the smaller, quicker guys and help out, like really good in doubles and awesome on ground balls. So that left side played unbelievable for us. And I think our game plan just, it worked out perfectly. We did a really good job one-on-one. We wanted to send doubles to a guy like Dane and to Hoka from the right side. And those doubles came in and were really, really effective. And again, every single person did what they needed to do, and every single person chipped in where they needed to chip in. And the success of our defense wasn't one guy. It was, every single person buying into what we needed to do to be successful.
There's a lot of talk about the high arc that you play. I don't know how much of that you hear, but everyone's talking about you being, way up at the top of the crease. And occasionally there'll be something like, the Dahoga goal that went off the boards and bounced off you that, probably wouldn't happen if you're back in the net, but it obviously works for you. I'm curious how that style has evolved through your career and why you feel like that's what works for you.
Yeah, I mean, it started with Matt Sawyer back in junior. My first year starting in junior A, he had told me that he was coaching with the Boston Blazers at the time, I believe. And, he was just telling me that a lot of the goalies in the NLL were having success in the bigger nets by stepping out, and junior had just switched over to the bigger nets. So he wanted me to try that out because he thought that my style would translate well to that, with me being so tall and being able to recover back to my pipes when I need to. And throughout the NLL, Pat Coyle has been, he's been a big proponent of me playing that high arc, and our defense that we want to play has been, playing really tight on ball, giving up those outside, not giving up, but settling for teams taking outside shots, and then really putting an emphasis on taking away the back doors and the backside pipes. So that gives me more confidence to take those steps out, to cut down that angle, to make those saves. And, I am still able to get across and make those cross crease saves when I need to.
It makes them be obviously a challenge when you do have to get across. But like you said, taking away the back pipe, taking away the quick stick on the back door has to be central to a game plan if you're going to play that way.
100%. And it is funny because, it doesn't happen a ton, but when there is a breakdown in our defense and we do give up one of those backside goals, it looks really, really bad. But the thing is like, it really doesn't happen that often. And, our whole idea with the defense is, we'll live with that happening every once in a while, because we know how much success we're going to have if I am playing that really high arc and we are, playing our defense the way that we want to play it. So we'll live with giving up a couple of those goals a game.
It's been a long season, but now ready to roll with the PLL, just stepping in back outside.
Yeah, I'm going this weekend. It sounds like I'm going to be in more of a backup role to, get some reps in practice and just get back into the groove. I obviously have not touched my field lacrosse equipment yet. So that, that would be tough to just go in and play right away. So, but I will be there and I'll be supporting them and any way I can, and hopefully I can get back into the groove and get back into things pretty quick.
Do you use the same stick or a different stick?
I use the same head.
Okay.
But I use a much smaller shaft.
Right. For control.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right. Really appreciate you coming on. And I know you've been a busy guy, and I know you're going to continue to be a busy guy. So we appreciate you taking the time to be with us here on the Lacrosse Link, and good luck for the rest of the year. And once again, congratulations.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, lacrosse friends, hope you enjoyed those interviews, those conversations with John Lintz and Dillon Ward, two of the key cogs in the Colorado Mammoth's huge NLL championship. Now that the championship is over, we turn our thoughts to the Las Vegas Desert Dogs expansion draft, and that is where we are starting the rundown this week on Lacrosse Link. Protected lists from the 14 teams in the National Lacrosse League. The existing teams were due earlier today, the day that this episode is dropping, Thursday, June 23rd. The draft will be held on July 7th. At that point, the Desert Dogs will pick one player from each of the existing teams. So they'll get 14 players to add to their roster, their first 14 players. Here's the thing about the players the Desert Dogs will have to choose from. So the protected players basically each team can protect 11 players. There could be a few more teams can protect 12 if they decide to just go with 12 with just 4 forwards. They can do either 8 defenders or 7 defenders and a goalie. So if you look back at the Philadelphia San Diego expansion draft a few years ago, there were 9 teams, each protecting 11 players. That's 99 players. Move forward to the New York Rochester draft. 11 teams now, of course, with Philly and San Diego in, each protecting 11 players. That's 121 players, another 22 from the previous expansion draft. Move further ahead to the Panther City expansion draft, 13 teams protecting 11 players. That's 143 players. Now you've got 14 teams protecting at least 11 players each. That's 154. Panther City actually gets to protect 1 extra player because they are a first-year franchise and didn't make the playoffs. So that's 155 players at least that are protected. So that means when Las Vegas starts their expansion draft, they are picking based on the judgment of the teams, the 155th best player in the National Lacrosse League last season. And when you look at Philadelphia and San Diego, the team with the first pick in that draft picked the 100th best player. That's a pretty big difference. And you just go through the rosters and figure out who you think teams will protect and who will be available. And you can see it's going to be challenging. There are good players. There will be talent. There's lots of talent, but it will be challenging for Vegas to put together the list they want and have a team that can build towards competitiveness quickly. We saw Panther City do it. They were almost a playoff team this year. They were battling for that right to the end. So you know that Las Vegas has the opportunity to do it. It's going to be challenging and interesting. One other NLL note this week, the league did announce finalists for 3 of its year-end awards during Game 3 of the championship. Goalie of the year, 2 of them were facing off in that game. Nick Rose is the third, but Matt Vince and Dillon Ward, of course, the others. Very strong group. Zach Higgins, such a strong contender for that as well, but pretty hard to argue with those top 3. The rookie of the year, even harder to argue with. It's Reed Bowering, Patrick Dodds, and Jeff Teat. Teat, clearly the favorite to win that, but what great years from Bowery and Dodge. That is a strong group, one of the stronger rookie groups we've seen in a while. There's always good rookies, but that seems like a particularly impressive group. For MVP, Joe Terrence of Albany, Dane Smith of Buffalo, and Matt Vince, also of Buffalo. So you get the goalie mixed in there with his high-scoring teammate and the Albany stalwart and American forward Joe Terrence. The finalists for the other awards will be announced in the coming weeks. Now, the Founders Cup we move to. It is for the Canadian Junior B Championship and will be played this August, the 15th to 21st in Brampton. Ontario is such a difficult league to win. The team that has come out of Ontario has won the Founders Cup 43 of the 47 times it's been played. Since 1984, when records are pretty reliable, the Founders has been played in Ontario 13 times. 12 of those 13 times, an Ontario team has won the championship. Further, in those 12 championship games, the gold medal was played between 2 Ontario teams. That's because, of course, the host province has 2 teams in the tournament for the most part, the host and the league champion, or if the host wins the league, the 2 finalists. There are lots of strong competitors for the Ontario title and the Founders' favorite role that goes with it. The Nepean Knights, Elora Mohawks, Windsor Clippers, Hamilton Bengals, and Orangeville Northmen all had winning percentages of 800 or better in the regular season. There are other strong teams as well, the Clarington Green Gales, the Guelph Regals, the St. Catharines Athletics. There's a lot of competition. This year, though, there's a great opportunity for the rare feat of a team from another province reaching the Founders Final in Ontario. And that's because the host of this year's tournament, the Brampton Excelsiors, by losing their last game of the season last Sunday, missed the playoffs. They finished 7-13. That put them 17th out of 23 teams in the Ontario Junior B League. Now, because they're not in the playoffs, they now have 55 days off between games from their last regular season games until they start the Founders. That is a tough layoff to overcome. And you might wonder, why Brampton was picked. Well, they were picked a while ago, and it's tough to predict a while ahead. But with the pandemic, things have been tricky to keep track of. And it's not like they're a terrible team, but obviously 7-13, a .315 winning percentage. Hard to see them being competitive in the Founders. Definitely looks promising for some teams from other provinces to show their stuff. Keep an eye on the Junior B playoffs in Ontario because it's good, exciting lacrosse, and the competition is going to be ferocious for that other Ontario spot in the Founders. We have an MSL season. It's down to 4 teams, but there is a season in Major Series Lacrosse. The Oakville Rock pulled out of this summer because the OLA unilaterally changed the agreement that they, the MSL, and Owen Sound and Brampton bases battling over control of the former Excelsiors had reached. The key difference that came in was the OLA said whoever was not successful in the binding arbitration to which Owen Sound and Brampton have agreed to settle their differences or their situation, the other team would get an expansion team for 2023 with no expansion fee or other fees paid to the league. Rock owner Jamie Dawick made it clear he will not stand for the OLA telling MSL how they have to run their league or their expansion. He said, we have a plan. We should have a 6-team league. We make our decisions. It's hard to argue with his stance. Adding expansion teams or teams moving for that matter is not really a decision to be made by the OLA. If anything, I think it might be more surprising that the other 4 teams seem to be okay with that demand as they move forward. Now, we'll see how everything plays out. There's so much to do, so many moving parts. But in the meantime, MSL is moving forward, and it looks like we'll have a Man Cup, which had definitely been in jeopardy. Now, this has been kind of Ontario-centric because just a lot of things happening in Ontario, but there's lots of great lacrosse happening across Canada from coast to coast. To keep track of all of it, I recommend that you sign up for the CLL newsletter. It is the way to go. It's fairly new. I check it every morning though, and it pulls together everything, even has the odd dash of humor. So go to their Twitter at CLL Lacrosse. It takes like a minute to sign up. You'll get all the scores and box scores that are available delivered to your email inbox every morning. Great way to keep track of it all. Thank you so much, lacrosse friends, for being with us here on Lacrosse Link. I am your host, Steven Stamp. Lacrosse Link is your link to all things lacrosse.